friends. I am super excited to be here with you today for the Global Children's Book Club December Recipe Cook-Along. The book that you read this month is The Christmas Wish, and it takes place in Norway. So I am going to teach you how to make a very popular traditional Norwegian Christmas cookie called Pepperkaker. It's kind of like a gingerbread cookie, but it's thin and crispy like a ginger snap. They're really easy to make and they're really delicious to eat. Now, this recipe is coming from a book that I wrote called Scandinavian Gatherings. Let me tell you what the ingredients are so that you can gather them before we get started. First, you're going to need flour. So if you need to pause this video and go grab your ingredients, you can go ahead and do that. You won't miss anything. You need a bunch of spices. You'll need ginger. You'll need cinnamon. You will need cardamom. And you will need ground cloves. You'll also need baking soda and salt. You'll need brown sugar, you'll need butter, you'll need eggs, you'll need vanilla. And then if you have some of that yummy, chunky, crunchy crystal sugar, you'll need some of that. It's sometimes called sanding sugar. It's sometimes called demerara sugar. If you don't have any of that, just grab a little bowl of extra sugar, just white granulated sugar. All right, to get started, in a medium-sized bowl, we're going to measure out 2 cups plus 1 tablespoon of all-purpose flour. And then we're gonna add all of our spices and our baking soda and salt to that. So starting at the top of the spice list, we need 2 teaspoons of ground ginger. These cookies are gonna be so yummy and not too spicy. Sometimes spice cookies can be a little bit too spicy, but these ones are just perfect. I love them, and my kids love them, and I think you're gonna love them. All right, after the 2 teaspoons of ground ginger, we're going to add 1 teaspoon of ground cinnamon. We're going to add half a teaspoon of ground cardamom. And we're going to add half a teaspoon of ground cloves, and that will be the last spice that we're adding. So half a teaspoon of ground cloves. All right, there we go. And I'm gonna set all of my spices off to the side because I'm done with those. Also to that bowl with the flour and the spices, we're gonna add baking soda and salt. For baking soda, we need 1.5 teaspoons. So there's 1. There's a half. And then for salt, we need 1/4 teaspoon. So there's our 1/4 teaspoon. So those are called the dry ingredients. I'm gonna take a fork or a spoon or a whisk, whatever you have handy, and I'm just gonna mix those together in my bowl until it kind of all looks the same. This will make it easier to mix all the ingredients together in a few minutes. Okay, once you have your flour and your spices and your baking soda and salt all mixed together, you can put that over to the side, and you're gonna need to grab either a mixer with a bowl attached to it or a big bowl and then a hand mixer, and you might need your grown-ups' help for this part. Okay, in this mixer bowl, we are going to measure 1 cup of lightly packed brown sugar. You can use light brown sugar or dark brown sugar, either one works. I usually buy dark brown sugar just because I like how it tastes. And you're just gonna pack it in there lightly. You don't have to make sure it's mashed in there too hard. My sugar is kind of chunky. Oh, I lost some on my counter. I'm gonna put that in there. All right, make sure it's nice and packed down on the top. Okay, so that's 1 cup of brown sugar. I'm gonna put it in my mixer bowl. And And then we need 10 tablespoons of butter that has been sitting out on the counter for a little while so that it's nice and soft. Now, 1 stick of butter is 8 tablespoons usually. So you need 1 stick plus a little bit from the second stick of butter. Let's see, where does that go? So we're gonna add that to the mixer. Okay, and then we are going to beat those two together until they are light and fluffy on medium speed. So it might get a little bit noisy. I'm gonna crank up my bowl and I'm gonna turn it on to medium speed for about 1 minute. Okay, so mine is all light and fluffy. And then we're gonna add the rest of our ingredients except that sugar that's gonna go on top. So what we're gonna add, and I left out 1 ingredient. So if you didn't grab it, I also forgot to grab it. So we'll pause the video in just a second. We are going to need 1 egg. We're gonna need some vanilla extract, and we're gonna need molasses. That is key to the whole cookie recipe. So I'm gonna grab my molasses. You might need to grab some too. I also have a little trick for measuring out molasses or honey or syrup or anything sticky like that. I use my metal measuring cup, and I'm gonna spray it with nonstick cooking spray to help that molasses not stick inside. So if you wanna grab some of that too, go for it. I will be back in 1 second with my molasses. I'll see you back. There we go. I have my molasses. Do you have your molasses? Okay, we're ready to go. So we have our light and fluffy sugar and butter beat together. We're gonna add our 1 egg. You can do this yourself or you can have your grown-up help you. I'm gonna crank my bowl down for a second. And I always like to wash my hands after I crack eggs, so I'm gonna give mine a quick wash. All right, so I've got my 1 egg added in there. I am going to spray my measuring cup, 1/4 cup of molasses. So I'm gonna pour my molasses in there, and then it should come right out. And that little bit of nonstick spray isn't gonna hurt our cookies at all. Okay. I'm gonna add my 1/4 cup of molasses to the big bowl that has the eggs, the 1 egg, and the butter and the brown sugar. And then the last thing we need to add is just, let's see, 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Okay. Let's see. I might grab a little spatula just to speed things up a little bit. All right. Now, if you need to pause your video at any point to catch up on a step, you go ahead and do that. We will be here when you get back. All right. Our last ingredient to go into this big mixing bowl is 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. All I have is this giant jug of vanilla, so I'm gonna pour really, really carefully. Okay, there we go. Okay, now I'm going to mix those together just for a minute until they are all mixed together. It should look nice and smooth. There won't be any bits of egg or anything like that floating around. We want to make sure it's all mixed together. I'm also gonna grab a big spatula so that I can scrape down the inside of my bowl and make sure there's no sugar or butter sitting there waiting. I'm grabbing my Merry Christmas spatula. Gotta make sure nothing is sticking to the sides of the bowl because we want it all to mix together. Okay, that looks nice and smooth. Now we have to mix our dry ingredients that have the flour and all the spices with our wet ingredients that are in the mixing bowl. So we are gonna turn the mixer on low speed. If you are doing this in a regular bowl and just using a hand mixer, you might need to grab some help. So if you have a grown-up who's helping you, this would be perfect for one of you to do holding the bowl and the mixer and one of you to add the dry ingredients because they should happen at the same time. So I'm gonna put my mixer on just the first lowest speed and I'm just gonna gradually add those dry ingredients and let them mix together. And it already smells so good. I can smell the molasses and I can smell the butter and I can smell all those yummy spices that we added to this bowl. And I'm just adding this a little bit at a time until it's all been added in. Okay, as soon as the dough looks like it's all mixed together, I'm gonna scrape down the sides of the bowl with my spatula one more time to make sure I get all of that flour and all of those spices mixed together. We don't wanna leave anything behind. And I'm scraping the bottom of the bowl too to make sure I don't leave any butter and sugar waiting down there. Once I've got that all scraped off and I know that it's gonna mix together, I'm gonna turn my mixer on one more time just for a few seconds. I wanna make sure I can't see any flour or any molasses or anything like that. I want it all mixed together. I want all the dough to look the same. Okay, perfect. Now, this dough is too sticky to work with right now. We want to use some cute cookie cutters and it's going to be too sticky for that. So what we have to do is roll it out and put it in the fridge for a little while. Here's what we're going to do. You are going to grab some parchment paper, and I forgot that I was out of parchment paper, so I'm going to use waxed paper. I can't put waxed paper in the oven. So on my cookie sheets that are gonna go in the oven, I have those lined with silicone baking mats. My waxed paper is just for rolling out my dough. If you've got parchment paper, you can use that for both of those jobs. All right, so I'm gonna take 2 pieces of whatever kind of paper you're using. I'm gonna lay those out. And I'm gonna take my dough and divide it in half. I'm gonna put half of the dough on one cookie sheet or on one piece of waxed paper or parchment paper, and I'm gonna put the other half of the dough on the other sheet. So we're just gonna divide it in half. Let me scrape all of that yummy dough off of this beater. I don't want to leave any in there, because that could be an entire missing cookie that I don't get to eat. All right. All right, this looks like it's about half. So I'm just gonna plop it on there. And then I'm gonna scrape the other half out, and it does not have to be exact. A lot of times in baking, you need to be really exact, but not in this step. You can just use your eyeballs to judge if you think you've got them about evenly divided. We want about half the dough on one sheet of paper and about half the dough on the other sheet of paper. And I'm gonna grab a different spatula because I am not happy with how much cookie dough is still in my bowl. Let's see, I think this one will work a little bit better. I don't wanna leave any cookie dough in that bowl, do I? All right, oh yeah, that's working way better. Let's see. Okay, once we have the cookie dough on there, you want to kind of use your spatula just to press it into like a blob. It doesn't have to be exact, but you don't want to have like a little bit off all by itself. So just make sure it's all stuck together. Then you're going to take 2 more pieces of paper. Again, I'm using waxed paper, but you can use parchment paper. That would be better. And I'm just going to I'm going to put the piece on top. And I'm going to smush it down a little bit with my hands, and then I'm going to get out a rolling pin. I'm going to wash my hands first to get the cookie dough off and grab a rolling pin. Okay, we are going to roll both of these out before we put them in the fridge. And let's see, we want them to be about 1/4 inch thick. So that is like, let's see, what's a good 1/4 inch? Like maybe your pinky finger, like the thickness of your pinky finger. We're just gonna roll this out between those 2 pieces of paper. And you can turn it if you want, especially if you're running out of room. Till it's nice and flat and about as thick as your pinky finger. You can just use your finger to measure. All right, now one thing I forgot to do on that one, so I'm gonna do it on this one, and then I'll go back. My dough is gonna stick to that paper if I don't put any flour on it. So I'm gonna put a little flour on the top of the dough, and then I'm going to roll it out, and then I'll put some on the other side too. All right, there we go. Now it won't stick to the paper. I'm going to turn it. Remember, we're doing 1/4 inch, which is about as thick as your little finger. And I will just peel that paper off and add flour. No big deal. And you can do the same. If you didn't put flour on yours either because I forgot to tell you to do that, you can just, when you get it all rolled out and 1/4 inch thick like you want it, you can just peel the paper off, sprinkle a little flour on. Okay. Yeah, we don't want it to do that, so we are gonna add some flour. I'm gonna flip this whole sandwich over. There we go. All right, there we go. So we've got that cookie dough sandwich. I'm gonna go ahead and do this one too. A cup of flour. to make sure all of those pieces have flour on them so that when I put that paper back on, it won't stick. All right, there we go. So now we've got our 2 cookie dough sandwiches. I'm gonna take a cookie sheet and I'm gonna lay them both, just one right on top of the other on the cookie sheet. And this is all gonna go in the fridge for 1 hour until the dough is nice and hard. You don't want it to be hard like a rock, but you don't want it to be sticky anymore. And if we put it in the fridge, it'll stop being sticky. So we're gonna put this cookie dough setup in the fridge for 1 hour. You can pause your video, and after your 1 hour timer goes off, you can meet me back here. Hi again, friends. Welcome back. Hopefully you had your cookie dough chilling in the fridge for an hour. Now, before we move on to the baking step, we need to preheat our ovens to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. So I just did that. Why don't you go ahead and do that? Also, you will need 2 cookie sheets that are either lined with parchment paper or these non-stick silicone baking mats. You'll also need some cookie cutters. Now, there are so many fun cookie cutter shapes. This one is a Mickey Mouse gingerbread man. This one is my Swedish Dala horse. This is a really cute star. This is a heart. There are all kinds of fun Christmas cookie shapes that you can do. I am just going to stick with a boring old circle. This circle is about 2.5 inches around for your grown-ups who are in the kitchen helping you. These cookies puff up as they bake and then they settle down and kind of flatten out. So you guys can do whatever shapes you want. I'm gonna stick with a circle because I like all of my cookies to look the same. And I know that's kind of boring, but that's what I like. You can choose whichever cookie cutter shapes you like. The last thing you need is that sparkling sugar that we got out earlier. Again, if you don't have that, you can just get a little bowl of regular white granulated sugar and that will look really great and be nice and sweet and crunchy on top of your cookies too. Okay, get out one of your cookie dough sandwiches. I got out one of mine. My other one is still in the fridge. So I am just gonna roll this. Actually, you know what? I think it's fine. So I'm gonna peel off the top. Hopefully yours isn't as messy as mine. And I'm going to start cutting circles with my cookie cutter. And I'm gonna cut out as many as I can, which probably won't be all of them. If you guys have this happen, if the cookie dough comes out in the cookie cutter, just gently pop it out with your finger and your thumbs and put it on your cookie sheet. That's so easy. Sometimes that'll happen, sometimes that won't. So I'm gonna cut out as many of these as I can. Let's see. Oh, another one came out. That makes it so super simple. That one looks like it has a little hole in it, so I'm not gonna worry about that. Okay, here we go. So I got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I got 8 cookies out of that one. I am gonna grab a really thin spatula and I'm just gonna very carefully, without ruining the shape of my cookie, I'm gonna get those circles of cookie dough out and put them on a baking sheet. Spread them out the way you would regular cookies. So about 2 inches per cookie. Let's see. I'm gonna kind of alternate these. Now we're not gonna be able to keep using this cookie dough right now, so just, it doesn't matter if you mess up the other pieces. That is fine. I'm gonna brush off the edges because those were kind of chunky. And there we go. Okay. So I have my 8 cookies. Now, what I'm gonna do is just let this sit here for a second, this cookie dough. I'm gonna scoot it out of the way and I'm gonna grab my other cookie dough sandwich out of the refrigerator and I'm gonna cut out more cookies. And I'm gonna see if I can squeeze a few more onto this cookie sheet. I bet I can get 12 cookies on here. So I'm gonna rearrange these because I kind of squished them together before. Okay, I'm gonna see if I can get some more. Let me grab my cookie dough sandwich. All right, here's the other one. Okay, that's my 2. That gets me 12. And again, I'm just gonna kind of set these off to the side for right now while I get this first dozen cookies ready to go. I'm gonna kind of brush off any flour that's sitting there on top, but I'm not gonna worry about it too much. Okay, the last step before these go in the oven is to take that pretty sparkling sugar or just regular granulated white sugar if you have it. I'm gonna take a little spoonful and sprinkle it on top of my cookies. And that kind of went in a pile, so I'm gonna spread it out a little bit with my fingers. This will give it a nice sparkly top and also make the top of the cookie sweet and crunchy. All right. So we're gonna sprinkle some sugar on all of the cookie tops, and then we're gonna put them in the oven. If yours isn't already preheated to 350, you can wait for it to do that. Or you can wait for it to get up to temperature, I should say. Sprinkle, sprinkle. I am being very generous with these sprinkles. They are very sugary. All right. And these are gonna bake for 10 minutes. Now, when you look in the oven window, when they're ready, they'll be puffy and they'll look dry. They won't look wet. They won't look like wet cookie dough. And then you can take them out and you can set them on a cooling rack. I always set them right here on my stovetop to cool because it's heat proof, it's not gonna burn. And as they cool, they will flatten back down and get crispy, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and put this first batch in the oven for 10 minutes. And then I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna cut out more circles to put on my second cookie sheet over here. Now, if the dough gets too warm and it starts to get really sticky and it's not letting me cut them out, I'm just gonna smush it all together in a ball. I'm gonna sprinkle more flour on this waxed paper or parchment paper, which is what you should be using, and I'm gonna roll it out again and stick it back in the fridge till it's hard. So you kind of have to work in batches, so it's kind of like a little art project that you're doing all day. Okay, those are in the oven for 10 minutes. I'm grabbing my second cookie sheet and I'm gonna keep working with this colder dough. I got as many circles out of this first dough sandwich, cookie dough sandwich, as I could. But on the second one, there's still lots of space. So I'm gonna see if I can cut out some more circles. And again, if you want to do more exciting shapes than just circles, you can do whatever you want. These are your Pepperkaker cookies. Oh, I'm trying to squeeze one more on. There we go. It's going to have a little tiny bite taken out of it. Okay. I got as many as I could, and it was only 5. And that is okay. All right, now what I'm gonna do, instead of doing, let's see, I'm trying to decide if I should keep doing the dough divided in half. I have not figured that out. Okay, so I am going to pull over my first batch of cookie dough. And it's getting really soft now. So I'm just gonna grab it off of that parchment paper, or I'm using wax paper. You should be using parchment paper. But if all you have is wax paper, it works really well. You just can't cook on it. Okay, so I'm just gonna blob this back together like if I were using clay. I'm gonna sprinkle a little more flour on this paper. I'm doing it the right way this time so it doesn't stick. I'm gonna put that back in the middle. Sprinkle a little more flour on top. And my other 2 pieces were so sticky and messy, I'm not gonna worry about those. I'm just gonna get a fresh piece. have wax paper to go on top. Smush it with my hand a little, and now we are just going back to a few steps ago before we put the dough in the fridge, where we rolled it out and then we put it on a cookie sheet and we stuck it in the fridge. So you just keep repeating these steps until you've used up all your cookie dough and made as many of these ginger snaps, these Pepperkaker, as you can. All right, so there's my first cookie dough sandwich. I'm gonna put that in the fridge. And then I'm going to scrape off this dough and re-roll that one too. And we just keep switching back and forth until we have enough to bake one whole pan. And then whatever dough is left, you can keep cutting shapes out of. And then when you don't have any more room to cut shapes out, you just blob it back together like some Play-Doh and you put it back in the fridge rolled out. Okay, and my cookies have about 6 minutes left, so we will keep working on this until those cookies get out of the oven so you can see what they look like. And they taste really good when they're fresh, and they taste even better after they've cooled off all the way, and then they taste even better on the second day after they've had a chance to rest. A lot of times with things like baked goods that have a lot of spices in them, like all those spices we use, cinnamon and cardamom and ginger and cloves, they don't really have a chance to taste their best until all those spices have had a chance to rest. And so if they rest overnight, they're gonna taste really, really good tomorrow. But that doesn't mean you can't eat some today. Okay, there's my second ball of cookie dough. I'm just gonna scrape a little bit more off of this waxed paper. Smush it in there. Okay, don't forget, like I did that first time, we're gonna sprinkle a little flour on this so that it doesn't stick when you roll it out. We're gonna put more flour on top. I'm gonna grab a tiny bit more. I'm gonna get a fresh piece. If your wax paper or parchment paper looks good, then you can just keep using that. Mine looks really sticky, so I'm gonna get a new piece. And we're just rolling it out again. So this is back to that step again, where we rolled out our cookie dough and then stuck it in the fridge. Okay, I think that is at my 1/4 inch thickness that I'm looking for, so I'm gonna add that to the one that's in my fridge right now. Now here is a pro tip for all of you bakers out there. When it says to put it in the fridge for an hour, if you have a nice big freezer and there's room for your cookie sheet in the freezer, you can do extra fast, okay? Extra fast cookie dough chilling. And then you only need to do it for like 15 to 20 minutes to get it equal to what it would be in the fridge for an hour. So if you have room in your freezer and your grown-up will help you, then you can put them in the freezer instead of in the refrigerator. Just don't forget about them. So I'm actually gonna stick mine in the freezer this time to speed it up a little bit. My kids like to call it the blast chiller because that's what they call it on lots of cooking shows on TV, but it's just a freezer. Okay. All right, this is the one that I put in there a few minutes ago. It's still really soft, but I'm just gonna see if I can get a few more circles out of this. If it's too soft, I'll go put it back. It's okay though. Okay, we'll see if this worked. It's still pretty soft. It's still pretty soft. So I'm gonna cut these ones out, but then I'm gonna re-roll it again. It's just too soft. If I were doing anything other than circles, they would probably look a little bit weird right now, but my circles look okay. And I'm not gonna worry about getting this cookie sheet completely full before I put it in the oven, just because I already have 10 cookies on there. So we're just gonna call it good. I'm sprinkling sugar on the top. I'm gonna try to do it gently. I did so much sugar on the first batch. Okay, there we go, that's much better. It doesn't have to be completely covered with sugar. You know what? If you didn't have white sugar, but you had maybe like some red or green decorating sugar, sanding sugar, that would probably be fun too. That would be colorful. All right. I'm doing a much better job this time of sprinkling my sugar on top. And my first batch of cookies is just about out of the oven. And these will be ready to go in right at that exact time. Oh, too much. Okay. I'm gonna spread that out a little bit because I sprinkled too much again. All right, as soon as that first batch of cookies comes out of the oven, these will be ready to go in. Again, they bake for 10 minutes at 350 degrees. When this first batch comes out in about 1 minute, I'm gonna show them to you so that you can see what they should look like. And then I'm just gonna keep re-rolling and cutting and chilling and re-rolling and cutting and chilling until I've used up all of my cookie dough and I have all of my Pepperkaker ready to eat. All right, I'm gonna get my hot pads ready. This is definitely a step that your grown-ups should help you with. I let my kids open the oven door for me because the outside of the oven isn't hot, but a grown-up or an older brother or sister or cousin or friend should be the one to help you put in and take things out of the hot oven so that you don't get a burn. Okay, I will see you in just a second. My cookies only have a few seconds left. I'm gonna grab them and I'm gonna show you what they look like. All right, friends, here are my Pepperkaker. You can see that they have spread out a lot. That is why I go with circles instead of some of the fun shapes. And they have that pretty sparkling sugar on top. I am gonna go set these on my stove top behind me because it's heat safe, and I'm gonna let these cool all the way, and I'm gonna keep putting more cookies in the oven and then re-rolling and cutting and chilling the dough and repeating until I've got all of my Pepperkaker made. I am so happy that I got to do this recipe cook along for the Global Children's Book Club. You guys have a wonderful holiday season.